Hello everyone, Inquisitor Vaughn here, and in today's video I will be sharing with you all what I think are the top 3 saddest scenes that I've read in a Warhammer 40k book. This is actually a video that I plan to make for some time now, so I'm glad to actually be able to finally make it. Spoiler warning, I will be talking about 3 books in particular and things that happen in these books. The first one will be The Space Wolves Omnibus by William King. The second book will be Galaxy in Flames by Ben Counter, and the third book will be The Emperor's Spears by Aaron Dembski Bowden. I won't be ruining the entire books, but if you haven't read the books and look forward to it, I wouldn't recommend watching this video until you have. Without further delay, let's get into it. So the Space Wolves are one of the most loyal Adeptus Astartes chapters despite their barbaric reputation, and one of the most prominent figures in the Space Wolves chapter is Ragnar Blackmane. Ragnar Blackmane is one of the Wolf Lords of the chapter, and he has his own company, the Blackmanes. He's a true hero and he's a clever warrior, and his story as a character is written by William King in the Space Wolves Omnibus. It is my personal opinion that the Space Wolf Omnibus is one of the best books to read for those getting into Warhammer 40k. Whether you are interested in the Space Wolves themselves or the Space Marines as a faction, I would still recommend it because it actually shows the transition of Ragnar as a human being on Fenris as he turns into a Space Marine of the Space Wolves chapter, and all the trials that are involved. Being that the Space Wolves are one of the more extreme and unstable chapters, it provides a great read, and it's like very page turning and exciting. The first of the saddest moments I've read in any 40k book comes from the first book of the Space Wolves Omnibus. Before Ragnar Blackmane was a Space Wolf, he was a Fenrisian tribesman whose tribe was at war with another tribe, which is pretty much normal on Fenris or on any world in the Imperium. Ragnar's tribe had a day of celebration in which they partied, they got drunk, and were generally merry. The enemy tribe knew that the celebration would happen on this specific day, so they planned to attack Ragnar's tribe during this celebration. Before any of the celebration, Ragnar was attracted to a woman who was part of the tribe. On the night of the celebration, they profess their love to each other and they make love, and afterwards they lay together some distance away from the main encampment, and they just, are there relaxing, enjoying their time together. And as they are doing so, the enemy tribe attacks Ragnar's tribe's encampment. There's a moment where Ragnar accepts the fact that it's his duty as a man to fight instead of stay with the woman that he loves. He also knows that if he goes down to fight, he will die. His tribe is inebriated, they are unprepared, and they are outnumbered. Acknowledging all of these things, he looks at the woman that he's with, he thinks about the future that they planned to have together, and he says, "It would have been nice." He leaves her to fulfill his duty to fight, and he dies. Well, not really, but you get the point. This was a really sad scene for me because the Space Wolves Omnibus was the first 40k book I had read on getting back into the hobby after years of not being in it. It was one of the first scenes in the book that really put into perspective that the 40k universe is not a fair place. There are no happily ever afters, and there's barely any happy beginnings either. Things progressively just get worse, and as characters in the settings, all roads lead to fighting for your life, and it's a really dark place. Though I've spoiled that scene, I strongly encourage you all to read the book or listen to the audiobook if it exists, because it's awesome, and I think that William King did a great job not only portraying Ragnar Blackmane, but also portraying just the trial of Space Marines and Space Wolves in general. The second scene I want to talk about is from the book Galaxy in Flames by Ben Counter. The Horus Heresy was insane. The atrocities committed by the traitor forces to humanity itself are too many to count, but the things they did to their fellow Astartes were even worse. The traitors not only violated the loyalist legions, but they also violated the loyalist Astartes of their own legion, their own battle brothers. While reading the truly epic series that is the Horus Heresy series, there's one book called Galaxy in Flames. It's book 3 of the series, and while I can't say that it's the best book in the series, only because I haven't read the whole series, it is one of the best books out of the series that I've read, and it has one of the most powerful scenes I've read in any Warhammer 40k related book. This is also a strongly agreed upon sentiment by most of the people who have read the book. It's that impactful. So, for some context, in the book, Mortarion, Primarch of the Death Guard Legion, seeks to get rid of the Marines in his legion that are loyal to the Emperor so that his legion could be unified in its heresy. The way he decided to do this was to deploy those loyalist Death Guard Astartes onto the surface of Istvan III so that they could fight and subjugate a minor Xenos enemy there. Once they were deployed, Typhon, first captain of the Death Guard, initiates an orbital bombardment on the world. An orbital bombardment is basically when a Space Marine ship hovers over a planet and fires missiles from space into the surface of the world. Usually, when this happens, the goal is to destroy the planet itself along with all life on the planet. But this was different. Typhon was instead using bombs that would deploy the Life Eater virus. The bombs were to explode in the atmosphere of the planet and deploy a fast-spreading flesh-eating microorganism that would wipe out all life that inhaled it in a matter of seconds. In this scene, the Loyalist Death Guard figure out that they have been betrayed. The forces on the ground are moments away from being virus bombed. A detachment of Death Guard are near a group of bunkers, and they are all running full sprint toward bunkers to seal themselves away from the Life Eater virus. One of the squad leaders there, whose name was Temeter, was commanding his men into the bunkers before it was too late. He was confused as to what was happening and who would betray them in such a way, but he was just trying to make sure that his men got into the bunkers first. A veteran Contemptor Dreadnought, whose name was Huron Fall, barks at Temeter to also enter the bunkers as well, but Temeter insists that his men must go first, and he even tries to command Huron Fall into the bunker as well. Huron Fall calls him a fool and assures him that the Flesh Eater virus can't get through his own Contemptor chassis and that Temeter must seek shelter himself. For those who don't know, dreadnoughts are war machines that Space Marines use. Fatally wounded Space Marines are placed inside dreadnoughts so that they can continue fighting. Contemptor dreadnoughts are just a specific type of dreadnought. So Temeter is about to head into one of the bunkers, but looks to the sky in horror just as the virus bombs explode into the atmosphere. You know that scene from like Alien Covenant where David deploys the flesh-eating virus on the engineers and everyone dies? It was kind of like that. The effect was almost instant. Those not in bunkers are slowly devoured and melted by the Life Eater virus, including Temeter, who begins to physically melt in his own armor. He collapses and Huron Fowl catches him. With his one good eye that isn't yet melted into his skull, Temeter sees a trail of dark liquid coming from Huron Fall's dreadnought, and he understands that there was a break in the Contemptor's hull and that Huron himself knew about it, so they're both being eaten by the Life Eater virus. Temeter gurgles out, and he gurgles it out because his lungs are being disintegrated. "You lied." And Huron replies, "Veteran's prerogative. We'll go together then, shall we?" From here, Huron Fall runs from the bunkers, carrying Temeter as they are both slowly eaten by the Life Eater virus. Once they are far enough away from the bunkers, Huron Fall looks at the sky and declares, This death is ours. We choose it. We deny you your victory." Then Huron Fall uncouples his fusion generator and explodes, killing them both. So I cried. Yeah, I really cried. Like I actually had to put the book down and go for a walk because that scene was just too tough for me. You know, I had to think about life for a minute. This scene was sad to me because by the time he decides to do it, it doesn't really mean anything objectively. It doesn't turn the tide of battle. It doesn't save them. The enemy doesn't see it happening. They don't hear his final words. The gesture is, on the surface, meaningless. However, it meant everything to him and to them in that moment to not be a victim of their circumstances. They were going to die. They knew it. The most they could do is prepare for it and endure those final moments until the end. The way that Huron Fall chose to prepare for that end was by talking shit and dying by his own means. And I don't know, that was just too tough for me. I really like scenes of defiance like that, where it's like there's no way out of this, so we're gonna go in the best way that we can. They always make me emotional, I'm not gonna lie. Last but not least, I'm going to talk about a scene from the book Emperor Spears by Aaron Dembski Bowden. The most unfortunate Space Marine chapter ever created in the Warhammer 40k setting are the Lamenters. But like in second place for the most unfortunate would be the Celestial Lions. The Celestial Lions are a Space Marine chapter made from Rogal Dorn's Gene Seed that were pretty successful as a chapter of Space Marines, all things considered. They fought against the Orcs and protected the Imperium of Man for over 3,000 years after their creation. This would change though when an Inquisitor by the name of Apollyon requested their aid in subjugating a world that had turned its back to the Imperium and rebelled against the local authorities. The Celestial Lions were like, okay, cool, we got you. They deployed and they fought against the traitors, defeating them and bringing the rest of the world's population back into submission for the Imperium of Man. After doing that, they left the world. Their job was complete. However, Inquisitor Apollyon would analyze the population of the world and determine that they were all, in fact, heretics and declared exterminatus on the world. Exterminatus is basically like the orbital bombardment that I talked about earlier, just in the 40k setting. The Inquisitor declared exterminatus and destroyed the world, killing everyone on it. The Celestial Lions were furious. They had went to the planet and fought the traitors, killing them all. The people who were left were the loyal citizens of the Imperium, and now those loyalists were dead. The chapter's honor was stained, and they would not let such an injustice stand. They resolved to go to Terra itself to let the High Lords of Terra know what this Inquisitor had done. But those Marines they had sent never made it to Terra. The ships were found in Orc territory, destroyed. The chapter would continue to experience misfortune to the point that they were almost wiped out. This came to a climax on the world of Armageddon, which was being attacked by the Orcs. The Celestial Lions' full chapter deployed onto the world in order to assist the other chapters and forces against a truly massive Orc invasion. Here is where things started to go wrong. The intel that the chapter would receive was always incorrect. They would be told that a small force of orcs was at a certain location, only to arrive to a massive army of the enemy. They would be given the wrong coordinates to safe grounds and would be ambushed and attacked. They were constantly outnumbered and constantly depleted. The most suspicious thing about this was that whenever they were engaged in combat against the Orcs, their captains, their lieutenants, and any rank of leadership would be taken out by pinpoint accurate sniper fire. Orcs are incapable of pinpoint accurate sniper fire. It wasn't the Orcs doing this. It was the minions of Inquisitor Apollyon. For attempting to speak out against what he had done, he was determined to get rid of the whole chapter, and he was going to use their fight against the Orcs as a cover-up for their demise. It was he who orchestrated to have the entire chapter deployed onto Armageddon. It was he who was responsible for the inaccurate intel, and he would send assassins to Armageddon to get rid of the chapter's leadership. Not only this, but the assassins would also kill the apothecaries who collected the chapter's gene seed to assure that the chapter wouldn't even be able to recruit new Marines. In this way, the Celestial Lions chapter went from around 1,000 Astartes before Armageddon to around 100 Marines on the world. It was actually due to the renowned chaplain Grimaldus of the Black Templars that the Celestial Lions even made it off of Armageddon. By the time the chaplain made contact with the Lions, they were preparing for their last fight. They knew what was happening to them and why, but they were powerless to stop it, and so they were determined to have their last stand as warriors. Grimaldus hears their story and decides that the chapter needs to continue, despite the protestation of the remaining Celestial Lions leader, whose name was Ikin Dubaku. Side by side, Grimaldus and Ikin Dubaku fight against the orcs, with the Marines from both chapters joining in. It was due to Grimaldus's intervention that the Celestial Lions were able to make it off of the world. Ikin Dubaku became the chapter master of the depleted Celestial Lions chapter, and he was given new relic armor sourced from the Imperial Fists, and they were sent back to their homeworld of Elysium to rebuild their strength and their numbers. But Inquisitor Apollyon never stopped hunting the Celestial Lions. The book I will be talking about now is The Emperor's Spears by Aaron Dembski Bowden. In this book, an Astartes of the Mentor's Legion is sent across Ilera's Veil to analyze another chapter called the Emperor's Spears. They are one of the 3 chapters fighting against the Chaos Forces in that area of space, with the other 2 chapters being the Celestial Lions and the Star Scorpions. In this conflict, the Celestial Lions are the veterans, and Ikin Dubaku, their chapter master, is referred to as the War Master of the Loyalist forces there. While the Star Scorpions chapter is basically destroyed, and the Emperor's Spear chapter only recently received Primaris organs to aid them in the conflict, the Celestial Lions struggle to regrow their chapter numbers, and they never received any Primaris organs or reinforcements. So this is clearly some time after Armageddon, and they are still struggling to build their chapter and regain their strength. However, they're still fighting. There's a scene where the Wardens of Ilera's Veil meet aboard a ship to discuss the progress of the fight against the Chaos enemy. The book itself is about the Emperor's Spears, and they are a seriously cool chapter created by Aaron Dembski Bowden himself. But there's a scene where Ikin Dubaku and the Celestial Lions arrive to the meeting, and it's truly heartwarming. The moment they walk in, everyone starts greeting each other like they've been bros for life. Aaron Dembski Bowden does a great job of describing how warm and friendly and charismatic Ikin Dubaku is, and how much respect the Emperor's Spears have toward him. Because the Celestial Lions are still firstborn, all of the Emperor's Spears are taller than them, but you could tell that just by the respect and the presence that Ikin Dubaku is the biggest and most important person in the room, and they all love him. As the meeting progresses, we find out the plight of the Celestial Lions. They have been forced to leave their homeworld due to the constant attack from the Chaos enemies. For this reason, they struggle to grow the chapter. Still, they were in the fight to protect Ilera's Veil. The meeting progresses and everyone is full of resolve to continue the fight, and after the meeting ends, there's some time afterwards where the battle brothers of both chapters mingle amongst each other, they talk with each other, they catch up and socialize. One of the Emperor's Spears leaders is talking to Ikin Dubaku, offering encouraging words and plans for the future. Ikin Dubaku smiles and then says nothing because his head falls off. The shock that rippled through the space was equal to the shock at reading it. I went from feeling all warm inside to feeling like someone punched me in the face. So it turned out that the Inquisitor Apollyon sent an assassin to Ilera's Veil along with the Mentor Marine that was there. The reason no one knew was because the assassin was a Calidus assassin, and Calidus assassins utilize a polymorphing drug that enables them to change shape, and the assassin took the form of a human assistant to the Mentor Space Marine until it could strike. Before Ikin Dubaku's head could even hit the ground, every Astartes present pointed their bolters to the ceiling and opened fire. The Calidus assassin had been there the entire time, curled up on the ceiling, waiting for the opportunity to kill the chapter master. Surprisingly, they would make it out the room, but they would be wounded, hunted, and killed. Needless to say, I cried like a baby. The reason why this was so sad to me was because I was a huge fan of the Celestial Lions. I had a full army of Celestial Lions, I loved their lore and their color scheme, and I really liked Ikindubaku as a character. After reading Hell's Reach, I actually started writing an alternative history where the chapter would be able to rebuild, and I started to rewrite the chapter based on the information that we had from previous sources. I read the Emperor's Spears because I knew that they would be featured in the book, but I didn't know what to expect. So to meet this character, to see how much he is respected and loved, only to see them suddenly die, made me extremely sad. I actually stopped playing the Celestial Lions after that. The chapter itself, still exists in the lore, they still fight, but that really broke me and turned me away from playing the chapter. It was already hard enough to hear about orc sniper jokes every time I played them at my local gaming stores, but to have their chapter master killed was the icing on the cake for me. Well, those are only 3 scenes that legitimately made me cry and which count as the saddest moments in 40k that I've ever read. There are more scenes, but I've talked your ear off enough. I hope that you enjoyed. Comment below what the saddest moment in 40k is to you, because I'd love to dwell in the grim dark sadness with y'all. Without anything else to say, Inquisitor Vaughn out. Remember, the Emperor protects and the future is successor.